Welcome to The Complexity Code, Decoding the Patterns of Thought, brought to you by Mindful Literary. Have you ever wondered what lies beneath the surface of your thoughts, the intricate web that shapes your beliefs, emotions, and perceptions? In this audiobook, we'll embark on a journey through the intricate layers of the mind, exploring how our thoughts interconnect and influence our lives. With each chapter, you'll uncover the hidden patterns that govern your thinking, opening doors to greater self-awareness and understanding. Prepare to decode the complexities of your mind and discover the profound wisdom within. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Spark of Curiosity. The question that changed everything. It all started one ordinary afternoon under the peeling paint of the old oak desk in my childhood room. I was sifting through dusty journals filled with stories of distant lands and fantastical ideas, each page aglow with the echoes of my dreams. Suddenly, I was struck by a question that struck nerves deeper than I ever anticipated. Why? Why do we chase after the things we desire? Why do we grapple with our thoughts, seeking meaning in a world so full of chaos? This was more than just a question. It felt like the key to unlocking a door I didn't know existed. Gripped by curiosity, I felt like a moth drawn to flame. My mind raced through memories of my childhood, endless afternoons spent rummaging through nature, examining ants marching with purpose across the sidewalk, or the way my grandmother's eyes sparkled when she ruminated on the mysteries of the universe. A single question was poised at the brink of revolutionizing my understanding, prodding me gently but insistently. What lies beneath the surface of everything? Each inquiry pushed me deeper down the rabbit hole, peeling back the layers of my existence. I found myself questioning not just the world around me, but the very fabric of my life. What did I believe? What stories shaped my identity? I became an architect of my own explorations, constructing a framework around every thought, each observation, as fragile yet intricate as a spider's web. This pursuit of understanding ignited a spark within me, compelling me to seek answers to the questions I hadn't even realized I carried. Yet, as I delved into this journey, a haunting notion stirred in my mind. What if the answers I sought were darker than the questions I held? I was on the edge of discovery, feeling invigorated, yet unnerved by the prospect that my questions might unravel a fabric I had always believed was tightly woven. What if I was not ready for the truths that awaited me? Clinging to my curiosity, I pressed forward, propelled by the unanswered queries that began to define my very existence. Would seeking the answers bring clarity, or would it cast shadows I couldn't chase away? The path of inquiry. As I stood in front of the vast library, a fortress of knowledge rising up against the twilight sky, I felt my heart race. The question that had sparked this entire journey, a simple yet profound why, now echoed in my mind like a relentless drumbeat. The path ahead was uncharted, filled with the promise of answers hidden within the pages that surrounded me. I took a deep breath, ready to navigate the complexities of inquiry, a path that promised not just knowledge, but growth. Each visit to the library transformed from a mere quest for information into a profound exploration of my mind and the world. At first, it was the thrill of discovery that drove me. I meandered through rows of dusty books, my fingers dancing over their spines as I imagined the tales and truths they contained. Yet, as I delved deeper, I realized that the true inquiry lay in the questions that these texts stirred within me. I started jotting down thoughts, scribbling questions that bubbled up, often more complex than the content I had read. With every answer I unearthed yet more questions, creating a labyrinth of curiosity that drew me in further. But with every step I took down this path, I encountered obstacles I hadn't anticipated. Confusion often clouded my understanding, and there were moments when the answers eluded me, slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. I wrestled with doubt, my mind cloaked in fog as I questioned both the validity of my inquiries and my capacity to pursue them. Did I have the right to seek answers when the questions felt so insurmountable? But if there was one thing I learned, it was that inquiry is not a linear path. It winds and twists, revealing unexpected detours that lead to greater insights. It was in these challenging moments that I discovered the power of persistence. Each time I found myself at an impasse, I pushed against it, craved solutions, and let myself be guided by the very questions that had ignited my quest. Whether it was reaching out to mentors, diving into the murky waters of philosophical texts, or engaging in conversations that shifted my perspective, I began to recognize that inquiry wasn't simply about seeking answers. It was about the journey itself, the raw and often uncomfortable experience of contemplation and dialogue. As I stared at the towering shelves of books again, I felt a nagging pull in my gut. I was speeding towards something big, perhaps an answer, or maybe even a revelation about myself. My heart thudded louder, resonating with the rhythm of my growing determination. With each inquiry, with each embrace of complexity, I was not just uncovering knowledge, I was shaping who I was becoming. But an impending sense of tension wrapped around my heart. Would I find what I sought? Or perhaps, more importantly, what if the answers I uncovered didn't fit the narrative I had constructed for myself? The uncertainty loomed large, and as I took my first step into the next aisle, I felt the crushing weight of anticipation settle over me. I was about to unveil not just the world outside, but the uncharted territories within. A world full of wonders. As I wandered through the dimly lit streets of my hometown, the mundane seemed to dissolve into an enchanting panorama of marvels. I remember feeling a tingling sensation in my fingertips as I brushed against the rough bark of trees lining the sidewalk. Each groove, each splintered surface, whispered untold stories to me, secrets hidden in the heart of the ordinary. How could I have overlooked such wonders before? It was as though a veil had been lifted, revealing the beauty that existed right beneath my nose. Curiosity propelled me forward, like a moth to a flame, igniting my desire to explore deeper into the fabric of life. I found beauty in the way the golden rays of sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating a mosaic of shadows dancing on the ground. It struck me. Every leaf carried its own journey, each a testament to resilience, thriving against the backdrop of an ever-changing sky. I began to question, to wonder, not just about what I saw, but why I had never stopped to truly see. Every moment became an invitation, a chance to discover. I stumbled upon an elderly man painting the crumbling walls of a forgotten building. His brush moved with such intent, colors blending in ways that spoke of sorrow and joy intertwined. I approached him, my heart racing, eager to immerse myself in his world of creativity. "What do you see?" I asked, my voice a mere whisper. He paused, looked up, and smiled. "I see stories waiting to be told." In that moment, it struck me how this simple question unraveled the extraordinary waiting in every corner of our lives, an uncharted map leading to boundless discoveries. Yet, amidst the wonders lay palpable tension. As I rounded a corner, the atmosphere shifted. The air thickened with unease. A sense of foreboding surrounded me as I noticed a cluster of people gathered. Their faces were a tapestry of worry and intrigue. My heart quickened. What was their wonder? What had shifted in the balance of our world? I felt compelled to join, to peek over shoulders and listen in, as curiosity wrestled with the dread slowly creeping in. Perhaps in my quest for marvels, I was also meant to confront the shadows lurking just outside the light. The challenge of uncovering beauty and facing fears seemed to intertwine, urging me to remain vigilant, forever seeking answers beyond the visible. Chapter 2. The Web of Connections, Threads of Influence. As I sat on the edge of my bed, the dust motes swirling in the sunlight felt like tiny threads weaving into the fabric of my life. It struck me how every choice I made was not just a solitary thread, but a part of a larger tapestry, a complex network of influences that shaped who I was. Each decision echoed through the lives of those around me, binding us in ways I had never truly understood until now. My mind drifted to the decisions of my past, those seemingly inconsequential moments where a single choice had led me down paths I never anticipated. The choice to attend that lecture instead of staying home, to sit next to a stranger in class who later became my closest friend, the times I had said yes when I had wanted to say no. Did I pull on threads woven long before I arrived? Was I merely following the designs set out by others? It was both exhilarating and terrifying to consider. I was part of something much larger, a web of influence radiating from each person I encountered, shaping my perspectives, challenging my beliefs. Suddenly, the world felt vibrant, charged with the energy of interconnected destinies. Yet, within that energy, I felt a knot tightening in my chest. What if I were at the center of a tangled mess, the threads of my life entwined in ways that suffocated rather than set me free? As I grappled with these thoughts, I could almost sense the pull of each thread, urging me to reconsider my choices. Were they truly mine, or were they mere reflections of those who had come before me? The weight of the influences pressing on me was palpable. Clarity had once felt within reach, yet now it eluded me like a glimmering thread slipping through my fingers. And amidst this whirlpool of reflections, one truth began to crystallize. I had the power to pull on these threads deliberately. The realization ignited a spark of hope. Perhaps I wasn't just a passive player in this grand narrative. I could choose which threads to weave into my story, which connections to honor or redefine. Yet, the deeper I delved into this newfound understanding, the more questions arose, filling the air with an electric tension that left me breathless. What if my choices would ripple outward in ways I had yet to comprehend? The thought sent a shiver down my spine, sending me into a vortex of possibilities. The room around me faded as I envisioned the far-reaching effects of my decisions cascading through the lives of others. Would I find solace in this realization, or would it paralyze me with fear? It lingered there, a potent mixture of anticipation and dread, echoing a reality I could no longer ignore. This tangled web had its own rules, and I was just beginning to discover them. My heart raced as I pondered. Would I take the leap? Or would I remain ensnared within the very threads that shaped my existence? The weight of my choices pressed heavily upon my shoulders, demanding that I weave a path of my own, a path demanding not just influence, but intention. And as I peered into the murky depths of my connections, I felt both the thrill of exploration and the anxiety of forging ahead into the unknown. Interwoven destinies. The moment I stepped into the bustling cafe that rainy afternoon, I felt an inexplicable pull towards a table in the corner. Perhaps it was the vibrant splashes of color from the art displayed on its worn walls, or the soulful music playing in the background. It was a place where stories mingled, like the rich aromas of coffee wafting through the air, each cup holding a snippet of someone's life. Little did I know, that day would change everything. I caught sight of a young woman scribbling furiously into a well-worn notebook, her brow furrowed in concentration. Her focus mirrored my own restless mind, a shared urgency to unravel life's labyrinthine questions. Was this what it meant to be connected? To feel the constellation of destinies twinkling just beyond one another's reach? I felt an urge to know her story, to weave my thread into her tapestry, but a small fear gripped me. What if my curiosity only tangled our lives more deeply into unpredictable knots? I hesitated, the weight of my choices laden with significance. What would happen if I simply leaned into that pull? If I stood up and approached her, would our destinies intertwine seamlessly, or would I disrupt the delicate balance of her world? My heart raced at the thought. Connection was nuanced, beautiful yet perilous, a dance in which one misstep could lead to chaos. I understood then that life wasn't merely about my journey, but a shared journey of heartbeats, echoing in unison, each interaction creating ripples that stretched far beyond the moment. Finding your place. The cacophony of voices weighed heavily on me that evening, each one tugging at my thoughts, yet never lending clarity. I sat on the creaky wooden stairs of the porch, the air thick with the fragrance of damp earth and blooming lilacs. The world felt immense, yet I felt so terribly small within it, a player lost in a script too vast to comprehend. My mind wandered back to all the mornings I had spent in the library, flipping through the pages of history and philosophy, desperately searching for answers. But as I sat there, I couldn't help but wonder if I was asking the wrong questions. Who was I in such a tangled web of connections? I clung to the belief that each thread I encountered could guide me to my purpose, to a space that felt inherently mine. But the more I grasped at those strands, the more elusive they became. It seemed absurd to think I could carve out an identity amidst a community that pulsed with the energy of so many diverse lives. I thought of my friends, their laughter echoing like music in the background, a delicate reminder of the warmth found in our shared moments. Yet, beneath the joy, there lingered a whispering doubt. Was I contributing to their melodies, or merely interjecting notes of discord. In my search for belonging, I began to realize that each encounter, each conversation, each story intertwined with my own, held the potential to shape my identity. The voices around me were not just noise. They were reflections of lives equally seeking their places, just as I was. Perhaps, by understanding the narratives of those I loved, I could stitch my own story into this vibrant tapestry. But what if I failed? What if the threads unraveled, leaving me adrift in a world that felt so foreign? Just as I pondered this, the sky above began to shift, darkness dancing on the horizon, the first hints of night creeping in. I felt a surge of anxiety, a rush of tension that echoed my innermost fears. Was it possible to find belonging while still remaining true to myself? Or would I have to sacrifice bits of my essence in the pursuit of connection? The very thought struck me like cold water, awakening a need for resolve deep within. I couldn't let the fear of losing my place keep me from seeking it. The answers might be elusive, but in the depths of this uncertainty, I sensed a call to action. My journey wasn't over, it was just beginning. With a shuddering breath, I vowed to embrace the unknown. There is a specific power in the act of searching, in recognizing the discomfort as a sign of growth rather than failure. I wasn't merely defined by connections, they were the very fabric in which I could discover who I was meant to be. As the first stars flickered into existence, I stood up, brushing the dust from my jeans, ready to open myself up to the experiences yet unwritten. Perhaps by daring to find my place, I would finally come to understand its true significance. And maybe, just maybe, I would begin to hear my own melody amidst the symphony of life. Chapter 3. The Language of Thought. Words as Windows. As I immersed myself in the world of language, I began to see it as more than just a tool for communication. It was an intricate latticework of connections that could open windows into the thoughts and emotions of others. I recalled a day in the library, surrounded by the scent of aged paper and the soft whispers of people lost in their own worlds. There was a young boy buried in a book about far-off galaxies, his face alight with wonder. Wasn't that the magic of words? They could transport us across time and space, unlock unspoken truths, and reveal the deepest corners of our hearts. Yet, with this revelation came a weight. The responsibility of understanding language and its power terrified me. I began to notice how my words impacted those around me, how a simple compliment could lift someone's spirits, while a harsh critique could cast a shadow over their day. I was learning that language was not just a reflection of thought, it sculpted reality, carving pathways through which feelings flowed. This realization made me acutely aware of my own words, the potential to hurt or heal, to connect or divide. Suddenly, every conversation felt monumental. Then, as I was grappling with this newfound insight, I stumbled upon a poem that caught my breath. It spoke of longing and loss, capturing emotions I hadn't yet fully articulated. Reading those verses felt like looking through a window into someone's soul, an intimate glimpse that resonated with my own experiences. But that moment of connection was fleeting, and I felt compelled to confront a growing fear. Were my words serving as bridges of understanding, or were they merely walls, isolating me further? The tension built within me, a stark reminder that with every word chosen, there lay a choice to be made. As I stood at that threshold, the horizon before me beckoned, and I knew that this journey into the heart of language was just beginning. The silence of understanding. The world buzzes with noise, conversations flitting about like butterflies, discussions weaving through the air with the scent of ideas. But amidst this cacophony, I found a curious dichotomy, the silence that lay underneath. It's in these quiet moments, when words fade into the background, that I felt a profound connection, one that transcended utterance and delved deeply into realms of understanding I had yet to explore. There was the moment, a fleeting one really, when I sat alone under the vast canopy of stars, their brilliance muted by the cloak of night. A friend had sat with me earlier, our laughter echoing in the distance, but as they departed, a hush enveloped the scene. In that silence, I understood something far beyond what we had shared, a realization that language, while powerful, couldn't articulate the full spectrum of human experience. it became evident that our hearts communicated beyond mere words, each pulse and breath weaving a tapestry of feeling that often lay in unspoken realms. It was a liberation of sorts, yet I felt a weight pressing against my chest. Understanding often begged for validation in the form of spoken agreement or acknowledgement, but I began to see the beauty in the unsaid. In silence, there was acceptance. In silence, there was unity. And yet, it struck me, was I truly brave enough to embrace this quiet understanding? As I deliberated, shadows crept closer, the fragile nature of my realizations inching toward a confrontation I had been avoiding. The more I sat with this silence, the more the world around me transformed. The rustling leaves offered secrets that required no explanation, while the distant laughter of children hinted at joys that needed neither affirmation nor denial. It was in these subtleties that I found a growing tension, a paradox of awakening. Did depth necessitate discourse, or could true understanding flourish in stillness? And as I pondered these questions, a looming dread settled in. What if the world continued in its pursuit of louder declarations, leaving behind the whispers of insight waiting patiently in the silence? I knew I stood at an intersection. One path led to conformity, a clamor of voices striving for significance, while the other beckoned me toward quiet introspection. I could choose to carve my own way, but it would require fortitude. It was now a choice imbued with urgency. The silence wrapped around me like a shroud, both comforting and suffocating, as if it held the answers I didn't yet understand. As the night deepened, swirling thoughts mingled with the chill of the air, prompting me to reconsider the power we assign to speech. Were my feelings loud enough to echo through this silence? Would the understanding I sought be drowned in the relentless demand for verbal acknowledgement? The tension swelled until it became tangible, leaving me breathless and alive with the knowledge that something monumental hung in the balance. My journey, veiled in understanding, was poised for a revelation, waiting to emerge from the depths of silence. Dialogues that shape us. Each conversation we engage in is a thread woven into the tapestry of who we are. I've come to realize that it's not merely the words spoken, but the silences between them that shape my understanding of myself and the world. In my encounters, whether mundane or profound, I could feel the pull of the unspoken, lurking just beneath the surface of each sentence. It's these dialogues that often guide me, leaving an indelible mark on my thoughts, beliefs, and aspirations. There was a time I sat across from my mentor, eyes reflecting both confusion and yearning. "Emma," he said softly, "you must learn to listen not only to what is being said, but to what is left unexpressed." His words resonated in echoes within my mind. In that instant, I understood that my growth hinged not solely on my ability to articulate my thoughts, but also on mastering the art of perception, feeling the weight of a sigh, catching the fleeting expressions on my friends' faces. Each dialogue became a mirror, showing me parts of myself I had yet to explore. But the most haunting conversations are the ones that linger long after they've ended, unraveling my sense of self like an unfinished story. One night, during a heated discussion with a close friend, we skirmished over our contrasting beliefs. The air crackled with tension, and yet, in that storm of words, I found clarity. "Why do you think it's so easy for us to judge each other?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her response cut deeper than I anticipated, igniting a fire within me. "Because we're afraid of not being understood." It struck me then, our dialogues, the clashing, the harmonizing, were not just conversations but pivotal moments that chiseled away my ignorance, carving out space for empathy and understanding. This realization hit hardest when I recently confronted an old friend after years of silence. The chasm our fight had created was palpable, each word feeling like a stone thrown into dark waters. "Can we talk?" I ventured into the abyss of our shared history. I watched her face, a canvas of emotions, hurt, regret, and maybe a flicker of hope. Despite the weight of what had come before, in that moment, we were reclaiming our dialogue, redefining who we could become together. And as we shared our truths, I felt a shift within me, a feeling that our connection could emerge stronger than before. Yet, I also know that not all dialogues bring clarity. Some leave trails of confusion and hurt. I grapple with questions of intention. How much do I reveal when speaking? And how much do I filter through the lens of my insecurities? These reflections fuel an internal struggle that is as much a part of me as my desire for authentic connections. In conversations, I want to reveal myself while fearing the vulnerability that comes with honesty. It's a delicate dance, one that teaches me the stakes of every utterance, how what I say might shape not just the conversation, but also the person I am becoming. As I stand on the precipice of this realization, I feel an urge to dive deeper into the language of thought, to embrace the dialogues that will challenge me, expand me. The complexity of my interactions hangs like a heavy cloak, one I've worn for too long. And yet, with every discussion, every whisper into the void, I am reminded that every word has the power to carve out new paths, build bridges where once there were walls. In this journey, I know each dialogue is an opportunity, a chance to redefine my narrative and the stories of those who share the air with me. I take a breath, feeling the weight of my thoughts settle as I contemplate what lies ahead. The next conversation, even with its uncertainties, could be transformative. After all, it is in the unknown depths of dialogue that I discover the vastness of my world and the influence I have on it. And so I prepare to step forward, emboldened by the intricacies of connection, ready for the next exchange that might just be the conversation to shape me anew. Chapter 4. The Nature of Complexity Beyond Simplicity. As I stood at the edge of the crowded square, absorbing the symphony of voices, laughter, and the distant notes of a street musician's melody, I felt an insatiable urge to peel back the layers of complexity that wrapped around our lives. Life, in all its vividness, often masqueraded as something deceptively simple, a mere facade that we could easily take at face value. Yet, as I examined the intricate tapestry woven by human experiences and emotions, I realized there was so much more lurking beneath the surface. I had always been drawn to the nuances that others overlooked, the way a child's laughter could shift the geometry of a weary adult's heart, or how a shared glance between strangers could ignite a fleeting but profound connection. It left me pondering. What went into these moments? What invisible threads tied our stories together? Each insignificant interaction, with its own genesis and trajectory, was intricately connected to countless others. I was beginning to grasp that simplicity was an illusion, a comforting cover for the chaos beneath. But was it the chaos that scared us? I think back to moments in my life where the veneer of simplicity cracked. The time I sat frozen in my high school cafeteria, surrounded by friends who, unbeknownst to me, were struggling with battles I couldn't see. Their smiles were masks. Or when I faced my first real heartbreak, and the world felt like a puzzle missing its most vital piece. Those experiences opened my eyes to the complex architecture of emotions, revealing a world in which simplicity becomes not the goal, but the distraction. As I ventured deeper into this web of complexity, I found beauty in contradiction. In the chaos of a messy room, I discovered creativity waiting to be unleashed. In the tumult of my thoughts, I recognized the treasure of introspection. Each layer I uncovered drew me further into the notion that understanding complex circumstances led not only to self-discovery but also to empathy for others. Every twist, turn, and bump in the road was a brushstroke on the canvas of our intertwined realities, and I wanted desperately to understand this masterpiece. Yet as I pondered all this, a gnawing doubt began to take root, a worry that perhaps I was going too deep. Might I lose myself in the quagmire of life's intricacies? What if in seeking clarity, I uncovered shadows I wasn't prepared to face? My thoughts spiraled, mirroring the turbulent clouds gathering overhead. Suddenly, I found myself at a crossroads where simplicity offered solace, while complexity beckoned me to dive headfirst into unknown depths. It felt like standing on the precipice of an abyss, teetering between the safety of the known and the allure of the unexplored. My heart raced as I realized that each choice I made in that moment could shape my exploration. I could retreat to the comforting embrace of what was easy and familiar, or I could embrace the exhilarating uncertainty of complexity, knowing that the journey would demand courage and might yield treasures beyond my wildest dreams. Wavering like the flickering flame of a candle, I sensed the excitement of the unknown and the promise of discovery. And so, with a deep breath, I decided I would plunge beyond simplicity, unearthing the richness hidden within the intricate web of life, no matter how daunting the path may be. Embracing chaos. Chaos has always been a spectre lurking in the corners of my mind, a silent force ready to upend the carefully curated world I have built around me. I have often associated it with fear, that shivering panic when plans crumble and the unexpected strikes like a thief in the night. Yet, standing on the precipice of chaos, I feel a strange pull towards it, like a moth to an uncertain flame. Was this the moment I needed to confront the unpredictable currents of my life? In the tangled mess of my experiences, I began to see that chaos is not merely something to be endured, but rather something to be embraced. The word conjures images of clutter, noise, and confusion, but what if beneath that turmoil there exists a rich tapestry of opportunity? Was it possible that in relinquishing the need for control, I might discover a new kind of strength? I had watched too many times as life's unpredictability shattered my expectations into a million shimmering shards. Each effort to put things back together had only tightened the chains of anxiety around my spirit. I started to notice the patterns. In the moments where everything felt disjointed, flashes of connection appeared. If only I looked closely. The messy interludes of my life often grew into the most illuminating revelations. Each chaotic encounter became a brushstroke on the canvas of understanding, daring me to embrace the art of imperfection. Yet with each compelling realization came a raising of stakes, a nagging doubt. Was I ready to let go? The chaos loomed larger now. Every decision, every unexpected twist felt like a critical turning point. After all, what lay on the other side of this chaotic threshold? Was it liberation or a deeper descent into pandemonium? As I steeled myself to welcome the chaos, a deep breath escaped my lips. My heart beat like a drum in my chest. This was not merely about enduring a storm. This was about dancing in the rain, a surrender to the suddenness of life's unpredictable motions. I could already feel the resonance of resilience building within me, an unquenchable fire ready to illuminate the shadows of doubt. Chaos was unfolding before me, vibrant and chaotic, and for the first time, it didn't feel like something to fear, but something to fuel my growth. I was stepping closer to the edge, ready to leap, and what awaited me on the other side remained the greatest mystery of all. Patterns in randomness. Life has always felt like a tangled ball of yarn, with each thread pulling in different directions, seemingly aimless, yet whispering secrets in the folds of its chaos. It was during one of those quiet moments of reflection that I began to notice the patterns hidden within the randomness of my existence. The flutter of a butterfly's wings in my garden seemed insignificant at first, a fleeting beauty, until I traced it back to the chain of events leading to a long-lost friendship rekindled on a whimsically warm afternoon. As I sat in my favorite nook, where sunlight spilled through the leaves like liquid gold, I recalled the countless tiny moments that strung together to form the tapestry of my life. The stubbornness that compelled me to answer my phone that day, the serendipity of bumping into an old colleague in a crowded cafe, each interaction a stitch in the fabric of my narrative. It felt absurd, almost like I was obsessively searching for meaning where none existed. Yet, what if there was meaning? What if all this so-called randomness was merely a facade, obscuring deeper connections I had yet to uncover? This thought festered within me, a sweetly dissonant note in my mind. I started scribbling down everything I considered stray, moments where I felt like an observer rather than a participant. Patterns began to emerge from the chaos. The time I decided to take a different route home after work, and stumbled upon an art exhibit that sparked my passion for painting once more. Or the night of the thunderstorm, where I found solace in a book I had considered discarding, and its words reverberated within me like a long-lost melody, guiding me through my turmoil. Could it be that every decision, every seemingly trivial act, led to a culmination of unpredictable consequences that shaped who I was becoming? In that sense, randomness was not random at all, but the universe's way of arranging a jigsaw puzzle made from the pieces of my life, pushing me endlessly towards self-discovery. The realization dawned on me like the first light breaking over the horizon, a frisson of excitement mixed with a creeping anxiety, as if I teetered on the edge of something monumental. And yet, it wasn't just about me. In the grand mosaic of existence, I was just one tile among billions. What patterns were forming around me? I began to observe the intertwining lives of the people around me, the synchronicities that fluttered and collided as if choreographed by an unseen hand. The elderly man reading poetry in the park. What stories lay buried beneath his wrinkles? The young couple arguing noisily over their coffee. Were they destined to reconcile, or would their quarrel echo like a misunderstanding through the rest of their lives? I felt weighted with the knowledge that life was infinitely complex, yet amidst that complexity were whispers of order, beckoning me to listen closely. Patterns emerged and dissolved, leaving behind trails of uncertainty. My heart raced as I pondered the implications. Was I truly prepared to dive deeper into this complex dance of existence, to unearth the secrets hidden beneath layers of randomness? What if I discovered truths that could change everything? As I closed my eyes, my imagination painted scenes of the potential paths that lay ahead, thrilling and terrifying in their unpredictability. It was then that I felt the enormity of my journey ahead. I had only begun to scratch the surface of the patterns waiting to be revealed, and this realization rippled through me like a storm building on the horizon, promising transformation. It whispered of growth that would come not just from understanding myself, but from the myriad connections that bound me to everyone and everything around me. With a deep breath, I resolved to fully embrace this exploration, eager to unravel the knots of fate, one thread at a time. Chapter 5. The Mirror of Reflection, Self-Discovery. As I stared into the mirror, the person looking back at me felt like a stranger. Was this really who I had become? The question gnawed at my thoughts, binding them in an intricate web of doubts and longing. I had embarked on countless quests of inquiry through the maze of my existence, but it was here, in this face devoid of clarity, where I finally realized the most important question was not what, but who. Who was I when stripped of expectations, assumptions, and obligations? Who was I beneath the layers I had so meticulously crafted over the years? I took a moment to breathe, to allow the reality of my thoughts to settle like dust in the stillness of an empty room. My journey had become an endless pursuit of answers, yet the most profound insights often lay buried beneath surfaces I was too afraid to peel away. Discovering the depths beneath that facade would require courage, a willingness to face the intricate mosaic of my experiences, each piece holding a fragment of my identity. I recalled the echoes of voices that had shaped me, those who mirrored perceptions of who I should be. But in this silence, I felt a growing urgency to reclaim the narratives I had allowed others to write for me. This was the essence of self-discovery, the confrontation with oneself. The chaos of my emotions surged, mixing with fleeting memories, some fragrant with joy, others cloaked in sorrow. Each reflection intensified a desire to understand the unity within the disarray of my psyche. I feared true introspection, like one fears a darkened path. I longed for the light of understanding, yet hesitated at the threshold of vulnerability. What if this journey brought me face to face with the ghosts I had buried, or worse, with parts of myself that I had chosen to neglect? But beneath the fear lay a quiet, insistent whisper, a call to embrace the daunting task of self-revelation, to sift through past choices that had led to my current self. I had spent so many years crafting a story filled with colors not my own. Now was the time to find the hues that truly resonated with my being. As I clutched my scarred journal in my hands, I understood that the inked pages held secrets of my soul, raw and unedited. The process of self-discovery was messy, unplanned, and perhaps even uncomfortable. Would I be able to face the monsters lurking within those lines? The tension of revelation tightened around me, like a spring wound too tightly, ready to snap. I felt both exhilarated and terrified. Perhaps the truth of who I was lurked just beneath the surface, waiting to be unveiled. I glanced back at my reflection, a flicker of determination igniting within me. The mirror stood as both friend and foe, a portal to authenticity, yet a barrier between the comfort of ignorance and the pain of realization. In that moment, I made my choice. I would embark on the delicate dance of understanding myself fully, even if I had to wrestle with shadows that probed the depths of my consciousness. The real journey had just begun. Ghosts of the past. As I stood there, gazing into the depths of my own reflection, I felt a sudden chill creep up my spine. It was as if the mirror was not just a surface of glass, but a gateway to the multitude of ghosts that took refuge in the corners of my mind. Each one whispered a story, each voice layered over the other, transforming the echoes of my past into a cacophony I could no longer ignore. I closed my eyes, allowing the memories to flood in, the sharp edges softened by time, but still so vividly haunting. The laughter of friends who had long gone, moments of both joy and deep regret swirling chaotically, a tempest of lost innocence. I could see their faces, if only for a fleeting second, like shadows passing beneath the surface of a murky lake. Each shadow carved a notch into my heart, reminding me of every choice I had ever made, every path I had left untraveled. But why did I feel this relentless haunting? Was it guilt that prodded me, demanding acknowledgement? It often felt like I was chasing specters that shifted just beyond my grasp, conjuring emotions I had buried deep within. The past had its own way of creeping in, whispering its regrets when I least expected it. I could not escape its grasp, nor did I fully understand what I needed to confront. Was it the love I had lost, the dreams surrendered, or the hurt I had caused that kept me connected to these phantoms? The more I reflected, the more palpable the sorrow became, until it took on a form of its own. It wrapped around me, an embrace filled with longing and unresolved tension, and in that moment, I realized I needed to unearth these buried truths. I breathed deeply, steeling myself for the journey back through the fog of remembrance. To embrace my future, I would need to face the ghosts of my past, each one demanding its moment in the light of understanding. In this process, I could feel an unfamiliar flame igniting within me, a flicker of courage amidst the shadows. I sensed that confronting these specters would be no simple task. They were stubborn, unwilling to let go. Yet, the thought of residing in this haze forever was far more daunting. The veil between the past and the present had thinned, and there was no denying that the answers I sought lay hidden among the spirits of my memories. As the tension mounted within me, I realized I was at a crossroads, standing precariously between the shards of what was and the promise of what could be. My heart raced, nerves dancing like fireflies in the twilight air, as I took the first step toward reconciliation. The echoes of my past were ready to tell their stories, and I was prepared to listen, no matter how unsettling the truths might be. I glanced back one last time at the mirror, my reflection flickering between two worlds, and then stepped forward into the unknown. The future in retrospect. As I sit by the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon, a sense of nostalgia washes over me. It's strange how the shadows of the past can stretch and distort, casting a veil over the possibilities ahead. I find myself contemplating not just my past experiences, but how they shape my understanding of the future. Can I really predict what lies ahead? Or am I merely projecting old fears and unfulfilled dreams onto a canvas yet untouched? Each memory I sift through feels like a stepping stone laid before me. The moments of joy and pain intertwine, creating a mosaic of who I am today. Every laughter shared, every tear shed, has etched itself onto my soul, leading me to this precipice of potential. Reflecting on the choices I've made, I realize they carried me here, a point of divergence where I stand on the brink of the unknown. But as I peer into that abyss, I must ask myself, who do I want to be as I leap into tomorrow? The echo of my past whispers promises of what could be. There were times when I thought I was lost, moments when it felt as though the world had conspired against my dreams. Yet, each setback was a lesson, a catalyst for growth. And so I wonder, will I embrace the uncertainties of the future as I have learned to embrace the shadows of yesteryear? The weight of those decisions hangs heavily, each one a contributor to the tapestry of my existence. It's with this realization that I understand, the future isn't just a blank stage, it's influenced by every thread woven into my story. Yet, within this reflection, lies a flicker of fear, a tension that constricts my heart. What if the future doesn't hold the same warmth as the memories I cherish? What if I'm unable to traverse the new paths carved out by fate's hand? Questions swirl in my mind, relentless and biting. But I know that change is the only constant, and perhaps it's the unpredictability of life that breathes vibrancy into our existence. It dawns on me that by confronting my past, I gather strength to step boldly into what is unwritten. There's a tempest of uncertainty brewing, but amidst it, I sense the invitation to create a future rooted in that very strength, relief. As I gaze out into the encroaching twilight, I realize that every dusk is not merely an end, but a promise of dawn. The future is a tapestry yet to be woven, colored by the choices I will dare to make. I inhale deeply, the weight of expectation momentarily lifted. I close my eyes and envision a world where I run towards my aspirations, unchained by doubt. And in that vision, I see the flicker of hope, a reminder that while I cannot control the unfolding of my destiny, I can shape it with every brave choice I choose to embrace. Chapter 6. The Dance of Emotions. The Rhythm of Feelings. As I sit alone in my room, the world outside swirls with the vibrant hues of the evening, but inside, I am enveloped in a fog of confusion. It's as if emotions move in a rhythm that only I can hear, a melody that dances on the edges of my consciousness. Every note strikes a different chord, resonating with the highs and lows of my experiences, each emotion weaving into the fabric of my being. It's in the moments of solitude that I truly feel the pulse of my feelings, like the thrum of a distant drum inviting me to join a dance. How strange it is to look back and see how each emotion has shaped my path, nudging me in unexpected directions. Love, anger, joy, sorrow, each emotion, a teacher with its own lessons etched into the lines of my soul. I can still recall the flutter of anxiety before those pivotal moments in life, the heartbeats echoing my fears louder than the actual events themselves. And yet, these fears give rise to courage, a willingness to step into the unknown, to sway to the beat of uncertainty, almost like a partner I never thought I would embrace. As I reflect, I become acutely aware that it is through this rhythm of emotions that I connect with others, each person a note in a grand symphony of shared experiences. The laughter shared with friends has a cadence of its own, while tears shed in isolation possess a weight that can silence even the loudest of rooms. This dance of emotions binds us together, a shared language that transcends words. But what happens when that rhythm is interrupted, when the music fades and silence creeps in? I find myself grappling with a haunting thought, questioning whether I have been attuned to my feelings or merely a passive observer, waiting for the next crescendo to sweep me up once again. The chaos of life brings unexpected tempests, and as each wave crashes over me, I feel unsteady, like a dancer caught off beat. Yet there lies a profound beauty in the chaos. Emotions, like the sudden gusts of wind, remind me that life is not meant to be choreographed. It is an improvisational dance that requires trust in the rhythm, trust in the flow. But right now, as shadows lengthen and the day slips into night, I am haunted by the fear that I might lose my rhythm entirely. Will I find my way back to the music of my own heart, or will I remain ensnared in silence? Just as I contemplate this unsettling possibility, a flicker of realization strikes me. The ebb and flow of emotions do not exist to bewilder or confound me. Rather, they are the very essence of what it means to be alive. I resolve to immerse myself into this dance fully, to entwine my fears, joys, and sorrows with the world around me. But even as I make this promise to myself, a disconcerting thought lingers. If I open myself to feeling everything, will I be prepared for the intensity of what lies ahead? The heavy drumbeat of dread begins to grow louder as I sense a storm brewing in the depths of my heart. The emotion spectrum. As I delve deeper into the kaleidoscope of human emotions, I find myself tantalized by their intricacies. Each emotion, like a thread of color, weaves a tapestry that defines our experiences and shapes our identities. I can almost visualize them spiraling around me, each one distinct, yet beautifully interconnected. Happiness gleams in radiant gold, while sorrow drapes itself in muted blues. Yet, what do these colors mean for me? How do they blend and interact within the canvas of my life? Sometimes I feel overwhelmed, a riot of feelings vying for my attention. In one moment, joy blossoms at the sight of a friend's smile, and in the next, a shadow of anxiety wraps around me like an unwelcome shroud. It's like attending a masquerade where emotions dance, but the masks often disguise their true identities. I invite acceptance in one breath and hesitate with doubt in the next. Through this internal ballet, I recognize that merely naming them does not encompass their depth. As I reflect, I understand that the crux of my emotional spectrum lies in accepting the full range of what it means to be human. The bittersweet moments, a burst of laughter spilling over a sorrowful memory, remind me that emotions are not static, they ebb and flow like the tide. My heart knows the depths of despair and the heights of ecstasy, but reconciling these extremes often feels like an impossible dance. Can I embrace this complexity and still cherish the lighter notes of life? Or will I be held captive by the heavy cord that evokes fear? This journey through the emotional spectrum is not just about recognition, it is about connection. With each experience, I forge bonds with others, discovering how deeply we are intertwined in our shared feelings. When I express vulnerability, I invite others to do the same, a ripple effect of understanding that can shift the atmosphere around us. It's in the moments of openness that our relationships grow richer, revealing facets we never knew existed. But as I take this leap, I can't ignore the flicker of trepidation that ignites within. What if I expose too much? What if my authenticity is met with rejection instead of empathy? As I stare into the depths of this colorful spectrum, I'm confronted by a sense of urgency. I must navigate this dance with intention, lest I lose myself in the chaotic rhythm. How can I find balance amid the tumultuous waves of feeling? The fear of drowning in despair shadows my pursuit of joy, and it becomes increasingly clear that this dance is not simply about individual expression. It's a choreography of existence, defined by every heartbeat and every thought. With courage clashing against my insecurities, I step into the next movement of this emotional waltz, hoping to uncover what these vibrant hues mean for my journey, embracing vulnerability. It's peculiar how vulnerability can swing like a pendulum, oscillating between fear and liberation. When I looked in the mirror that morning, I didn't just see my reflection, I saw a mosaic of the past, each shard reflecting a moment when I hesitated to bare my soul. The weight of that hesitation pressed down on my chest. How many opportunities had I let slip through my fingers simply because I shrouded myself in armor? Today, I decided to change that. As I walked through the park, the sun breaking through the clouds felt like a cue. I could sense the familiar chatter of the trees, their leaves whispering secrets, urging me to unravel my layers. I recalled the words of an old friend who once said that true connection demands honesty, and honesty can only arise from the courage to be vulnerable. Did I really have the strength to open my heart? My pulse quickened as the thought lingered in my mind. All around me, laughter mingled with the gentle rustling of leaves, echoing a sense of togetherness I yearned for, yet often avoided. Finding a bench, I sat down, the air thick with anticipation and a tinge of apprehension. Each breath became a mindful attempt to loosen the knots in my stomach. I thought of all the relationships I had cautiously navigated, careful to keep my deepest emotions tucked away. The warmth of connection was always just out of reach. I recalled that moment of revelation during a late-night conversation with my sister, where I spilled my fears and insecurities, cloaked in the veil of vulnerability. The freedom I felt afterward was intoxicating, yet here I sat, still hesitant. Could I invite that freedom back into my life? Could I embrace the rawness of my emotions once more? With a deep exhale, I remembered my intention. I had to remind myself that vulnerability is not weakness, it's an act of strength. Confronting my feelings head-on would allow others to see me for who I truly was. The thought was electrifying yet terrifying. I felt my heart race as I contemplated the possibility of opening up to those around me. What would happen if I shared my fears, my dreams, my chaotic thoughts? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue on everything it touched, I clung to that flicker of hope, igniting the strength within me. Then, something shifted. An undercurrent of fear, blended with bubbling anticipation, surged through me. It was the idea of sharing my vulnerability, not just to heal myself, but to connect with others. The tension was palpable as I thought of the conversations looming ahead, those unsteady, trembling exchanges where emotions might clash. Would they recoil? Would they empathize? The park began to fill up with families and friends, their laughter ringing like distant chimes, urging me to take that leap. In that moment, it became clear each person carried their own weight of fear, perhaps their own desire to connect. As I gazed around, I understood that if I were to dismantle my barriers, I couldn't be alone. I needed to create a space where vulnerability could thrive, a circle of shared truths. The anticipation was intoxicating, but the fear of rejection loomed close. What if my embrace of this vulnerability sparked an earnest connection or an agonizing silence? Suddenly, I stood up, driven by a newfound purpose. I felt raw but liberated, armed only with my honesty and courage. Today was just the beginning, an imperfect dance of raw emotions and open hearts. It was time to embrace the uncertainty, to plunge into the chaos of authentic connection and let the music of our vulnerabilities intertwine. But could I withstand the weight of it all, knowing every note carried the potential for both joy and heartache? Chapter 7. The Power of Perception. Seeing versus observing. For so long, I thought I understood the world around me. I'd see the bright colors of the flowers in the park, the chatter of children playing, the sway of trees in the wind. But there was a distinct difference between simply seeing and truly observing. It was a lesson I stumbled upon unknowingly, one that unfolded in layers as I navigated through the tapestry of my life. I remember a day when I sat quietly on a bench, the sun casting warm golden rays that gently caressed my skin. I was surrounded by the usual bustle of life. Couples laughed as they strolled by, a jogger panted past, earbuds securely nestled in his ears. I took it all in, a mere spectator in the grand play of existence. Yet, there was a nagging whisper in my mind, a desire to dive deeper beneath the surface. A few moments later, I noticed a little girl eagerly chasing butterflies. Her laughter was a melody that flitted through the air, mesmerizing in its purity. As I watched, my perspective shifted. No longer was I just seeing. I became the girl, captivated by the dance of colors and the thrill of simple pleasures. In that fleeting moment, I was reminded that each butterfly carried a story, and each story was an echo of life's mysteries waiting to be uncovered. This newfound awareness didn't just confine itself to the park. I realized it was all around me. Conversations became more profound. Every word held meaning that I previously overlooked. I began to observe the subtleties in expressions, the emotions tied to fleeting glances. No longer passive, I dove into the heart of human connection, my surroundings transforming into a rich tapestry woven from dreams, fears, and hopes. But the real revelation came when I began to observe myself, to confront the shadows that lingered in the corners of my mind. Each time I tried to ignore them, they whispered louder, demanding acknowledgement. In observing rather than simply seeing, I noticed the patterns of my thoughts, the habits that bound me. It wasn't just an exercise in self-awareness, it was an unsettling confrontation with my own identity. As I delved deeper, weaving through the textures of my experiences, I felt tension rising within. Would I be brave enough to confront what lay hidden? Would I surface with answers, or would I unearth more questions? The thought of what I might discover was both thrilling and terrifying, almost palpable in the air around me, fusing doubt with exhilaration. The world, it seemed, had so much more to tell, the stories untold, the emotions unfelt, and the discoveries yet to be made. I was on the precipice of understanding something vast, and as I leaned in closer, I sensed a tide rising. It was time to leave behind the safety of seeing and embrace the uncertainty of observing, a choice that would forever alter my path. Who knew what revelations awaited me just beyond the horizon of my perception? The filters of experience. As I sit beneath the sprawling branches of the old oak tree, the sunlight dapples the ground with shifting patches of light and dark. My mind drifts toward the concept of perception. It's astounding how the layers of my past stretch over my present like an intricate tapestry, each thread colored by experiences I've had, choices I've made. What I see is not nearly as critical as how I see it, and therein lies the paradox of my existence. The filters of my experiences, those joyous highs and crushing lows, shape everything I perceive. Am I truly seeing an opportunity, or am I merely recalling a seed of fear planted in my childhood? The whispers of memory float through the air, beckoning me to confront them. I think of the times I hesitated in the face of potential joy, caught in the tangled web of what had come before. Each time someone offering kindness had called out to me, I had answered with suspicion, instinctively shrouding myself in the robes of past betrayals. This was my experience, filtering and distorting their intentions. clouding my view like a misty fog over a familiar path. Do others, too, cultivate similar blind spots in their interactions? Are they also navigating their lives through lenses tinted by their own histories? The quaint cafe across the street beckons, full of laughter and camaraderie I had always wished to partake in, but often observed from afar. I can't help but wonder, what if I stepped beyond my confines? What if I adjusted my lens ever so slightly, moved by the curiosity that sparked this journey in the first place? This notion sends a tremor through me, igniting hope and trepidation in equal measures. I remind myself that the ability to shift how I perceive my world is not just a theoretical exercise. It is an act of reclamation. Am I ready to embrace the potential of change, or will I allow my past to hedge my future in shadows? There's an urgency swelling within me as I contemplate the myriad ways my perceptions could evolve. I feel it build like a tide, washing over the trees, filling every crack in the ground beneath me. Perhaps it's not just about what I've been through, it's about what I choose to do next. The echoes of experiences past do not have to dictate the sound of my future. I can redefine their echo. But standing on this precipice feels precarious. A single misstep threatening to fracture my fragile resolve. Can I muster the courage to challenge everything I thought was unchangeable? As I rise from my place beneath the oak, a leaf drifts down, landing at my feet. A symbol, perhaps, of my potential for renewal. I take a deep breath, the air heavy with the promise of change. The cafe calls to me again, a beacon of possibility glimmering just beyond my comfort zone. But the question remains, have I truly prepared myself to shift the filters I've grown so accustomed to? Can the kaleidoscope of my perceptions transform? As I ponder these questions, I feel both exhilaration and a deep-seated anxiety. After all, the heart of perception is not merely about how we see, but how willing we are to embrace the unseen waiting just beyond our veil of experience. The journey forward beckons, but will I answer its call? Changing the lens. As I walked through the bustling streets of the city, each person seemed so engrossed in their own world, their faces flush with purpose and urgency. Yet beneath that surface of distraction, I began to sense the intricate stories woven within every life I passed by. It was as if I had adjusted the dial of my perception, sharpening the blurry images around me into vibrant narratives, waiting to be unveiled. This transformation was not merely about seeing, it was about observation. I recalled the lesson I had learned about the difference between the two. Seeing was passive, a simple act of recognition. Observing was active, a deeper engagement with my surroundings. In this moment, I felt the pulse of life, the rhythm of interactions that echoed in my mind like a symphony composed of countless individual notes. Chapter 8. The Journey of Beliefs. Foundations of Faith. Faith has always been a nebulous concept for me, a foundation so subtly woven into the fabric of our collective consciousness that I hardly noticed its influence until now. As I sit in this quaint cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee swirling around me, I ponder my beliefs, the very essence of who I am. How did I come to believe in what I do? What were the early moments that shaped this intricate mosaic of conviction? It's a daunting question, one that I instinctively avoided until now. In my childhood, surrounded by family traditions that punctuated every holiday and gathering, it was easy to adopt the beliefs of those around me. I remember my grandmother's bedtime stories, each laced with morals that felt as comforting as the quilt she draped over me each night. Her tales spoke of honor, kindness, and faith in the unseen, laying the first bricks of my belief system. Yet, as I grew older, I found myself more burdened than enlightened by these expectations. Was it faith or fear that kept me in line? Would my beliefs shift if I ventured beyond the veil of familiarity? Seeking answers became an addiction, much like my caffeine fix tonight. I dug into the ideologies posed by various philosophers, brushed against the mystical teachings of ancient cultures, and dared to challenge the rigid dogma that often overshadowed my youthful curiosity. Each insight was like a stepping stone, leading me away from the complacency I had known and into a challenging landscape of uncertainty. I wished to build a foundation of faith that was both mine and reflective of the world around me, but the deeper I delved, the more precarious that foundation became. And so here I sit, caught between tradition and exploration, feeling both liberated and terrified. The enormity of the task weighs on me. How do I sift through generations of beliefs that have been handed down like heirlooms, deciding which to embrace and which to set aside? The swirling thoughts create an almost tangible heat within me. I am aware that faith is not just a set of beliefs. It is a living entity, capable of growth and change. But as I peel back the layers of my convictions, I am left with a visceral fear that my journey might lead me to conclusions I cannot bear. What if I unearth beliefs I once held dear and find that they crumble under scrutiny? What if I realize that the faith that soothed my childhood fears was nothing more than a comforting illusion? I glance around the cafe, hoping to see reflections of my thoughts in the eyes of strangers sipping their coffee, but their expressions remain timelessly absorbed in their own worlds. I wonder if they too wrestle with questions of faith, or if they have confidently settled into their beliefs like well-worn shoes. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting an orange glow across the room, I feel the weight of the shadows lengthening around me. The dichotomy of light and darkness mirrors my internal struggle, illuminating the comforts of past beliefs while casting shadows on the uncertainties of my findings. If my convictions are to evolve, I must confront the brink of this existential cliff and leap into the unknown. But the uncertainty is intoxicating, and I find myself teetering at the edge, caught in the thrilling tension between who I was and who I yearn to become. This journey into the foundations of faith may very well shape the next chapter of my life, one filled with tumultuous beauty and profound clarity. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the adventure ahead as I prepare to dismantle the very beliefs that define me. With trembling hands and a racing heart, I know that I can no longer dance on the surface of my convictions. It's time to dive deeper, to unearth the roots that bind me to my past and guide me toward an uncertain future. The evolution of conviction. As I gazed out of the window, the world unfurling before me like a story waiting to be told, I couldn't help but reflect on how my beliefs had evolved over the years. Each conviction I embraced, shaped not just by my experiences, but also by the ever-changing landscape of my emotions and perceptions. What once felt immovable, like ancient trees anchoring the earth, had morphed into something fluid and adaptable, shifting with the winds of time. I remembered the fervor with which I once held on to my beliefs. They were my guiding stars, illuminating my path through the dark woods of uncertainty. But just as the seasons change, so did the clarity of my convictions. I look back now, almost incredulous at how rigidly I clung to ideas that were spurred by fear rather than understanding. The realization was breathtaking. It made me question what it truly meant to believe. Were these convictions mine, or were they echoes of others' voices layered over my own thoughts? There were days when I felt overwhelmed by this evolution, nearly paralyzed by the dissonance between who I was and who I was becoming. But in those moments, something remarkable happened. I learned to ask. I learned to question. The act of inquiry became a lifeline, a way to sift through the debris of old convictions and emerge with a clearer understanding of myself. Was it bravery or madness to let go of the familiar and embrace the unknown? I wasn't quite sure, but the thrill of exploration began to overshadow my fears. As I pondered all of this, I felt the flames of uncertainty flicker in the pit of my stomach, and suddenly, a thought struck me. What if the deepest acts of conviction came from recognizing the limits of our own beliefs? This potential revelation sent chills down my spine as I understood the truth of that statement. The thought lingered ominously in my mind, a reminder that my journey was far from over, that each new question would ripple outward, leading me to yet more challenging shores. But amidst the disquiet, a spark ignited within me. This evolution was a gift, a chance to redefine what I stood for. It felt like the promise of freedom, the thrill of discovery. I had a choice, to let my convictions evolve, or to let them wither in the constraints of my mind. I chose evolution. I chose to embrace the beautiful, chaotic journey of becoming. Questioning the unquestioned, I sat cross-legged on my worn-out rug, the threads forming patterns that mimicked the chaos swirling in my mind. My beliefs, once steadfast and unbending, began to feel like old photographs fading at the edges. Each one held a story, a time when I believed in their truth. But now, As I sifted through this mental archive, I couldn't help but wonder, what if all I've accepted as absolute truths were merely comfort blankets hiding a colder reality? The essence of my identity was tangled in these beliefs. They had crafted the person I was, an amalgamation of societal expectations, familial teachings, and personal experiences. But with each passing day, I realized the need to peel back these layers. What if the core of who I was, who I believed I should be, was nothing more than a construction? A facade built to please others and shield me from the uncertainties of life. I recalled a conversation with a friend just days ago. She had mentioned the idea that we choose our truths, influenced by the culture and environment surrounding us. Her words had struck a chord, resonating in a way that made me question the solidity of my convictions. As I pondered this, I felt a slight tremor of fear. What if, by questioning everything, I risked losing myself entirely? But what terrified me more was the thought of clinging to beliefs that might not hold water. The ticking clock in the corner of the room punctuated my thoughts, each second urging me closer to an essential confrontation. I needed to explore my fears, my values, and the adhesive that kept these beliefs so firmly in place. Did I truly understand them? Or had I merely accepted them because they were easier to bear than the discomfort of uncertainty? A sudden urge overcame me. I had to document this journey, capture the doubts, the struggles, the liberation that questioning brought. My journal became a refuge where ink spilled across pages like the unraveling threads of my tightly woven identity. Page after page, I wrote fervently about my doubts. Each question along the way felt like a diving board, pushing me into uncharted waters, the depths of which were unknown and frightening yet compelling. With each written word, the tension mounted. I found myself standing on the precipice of belief and disbelief, feeling the pull of the unknown tangled in necessity. Would I emerge from this questioning stronger, or would it consume me? As I wrote, I could feel the weight of unanswerable questions settle in my chest. What if in this journey of deconstruction, I faced truths more painful than ignorance? My heart raced at the thought, but there was an electrifying spark, a yearning for understanding that I couldn't ignore. This journey was no longer about seeking comfort in established truths. It was about embracing uncertainty. I took a deep breath, steadying my resolve. Perhaps it was time to let the old photographs fade into memory, allowing new images to fill the void, images unrestrained by the questions that stifled me. As night fell, I closed my journal, the ink still damp, the air thick with unspoken introspection. Tomorrow, I would step into the unknown, ready to confront my beliefs head-on, questioning the unquestioned and greeting whatever lay beyond with an open heart. Chapter 9. The Collective Consciousness. Tapping into the hive mind. As I sat beneath the sprawling branches of the ancient oak, a murmur rose up from the ground, weaving through the rustling leaves, teasing my ear with an unseen thread of thought. What if I could connect not just with the world around me, but with the essence of humanity itself? The idea struck me like a bolt of lightning, electrifying every neuron in my brain. In that moment, I felt the seductive pull of the collective consciousness, a vast reservoir of shared experiences, emotions, and ideas that bound us all together. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, focusing on the rhythm of life flowing around me, eager to explore this uncharted territory. With each heartbeat, I could feel the whispers of voices from ages past, from lovers and warriors, dreamers and builders. It was as if I were entwined in a grand tapestry, each thread representing a life lived. Somewhere within that beautifully woven fabric, I felt a profound yearning, a thirst for understanding the weight of choices that transcended the individual. Did I dare plunge into this hive mind to sift through the collective memories and uncertainties? Or would the enormity of it crush me, rendering me but a whisper among the many? I could feel the gravity of that choice pressing against my chest. In my mind's eye, I visualized a vast network of flickering lights, thinkers, doers, and creators, all communicating in a language beyond words. What would it be like to see the world through shared experiences? I wanted to hear their hopes, their fears, to feel the pulse of humanity reflect in my heart. But a sense of caution ensnared me like a spider's web. An unmoored mind could lose itself in the void, swallowed by the flood of understanding. What if I returned changed or not at all? The tension gripped me tighter as I contemplated not only the joy of connection, but the fear of losing my own singular voice in the cacophony of countless others. As the wind picked up and rustled the leaves above, I sensed a gentle nudge, as though the universe itself was urging me forward. It was an invitation to discover, to probe deeper than I ever dreamed I could. In that moment, the world felt both impossibly large and intimately small, a paradox I could scarcely wrap my head around. I stretched my hand out towards the sky, feeling the pulse of existence connecting us all, and I took the leap. Who knew what revelations lay waiting in the collective, ready to reshape my understanding of self and society? The energy thrummed around me, and I submitted to the flow, vowing to return transformed, illuminated by the wisdom of the hive mind. The influence of society. As I sat in the bustling cafe, a noisy sanctuary filled with laughter, conversations, and the clinking of mugs, I couldn't help but feel the subtle pull of collective energy around me. I watched a mother gently correct her child's behavior, the tight grip of societal expectations evident in her every word, and it struck me that the fabric of our everyday lives was woven with the threads of influence from one another. Each chuckle, each frown, each nod, it all worked in harmony to shape a larger narrative of who we are and what we believe. This pervasive influence stirred a familiar unease within me, an internal dialogue that questioned the very essence of my thoughts and beliefs. As I pulled out my notebook, the page blank before me felt like a canvas anticipating a masterstroke, yet I hesitated, laden with the weight of external forces determining the brushstrokes I had learned to apply. Was I merely a reflection of those around me? Did my beliefs echo the chorus of societal norms too loudly to hear my own authentic voice? The waves of curiosity crashing against the shores of conformity reverberated in my mind. In that moment, I realized the profound sense of belonging that societal approval can instill, a warm blanket that comforts while simultaneously suffocating. My journey through self-discovery now demanded a confrontation with the silent puppet strings of societal expectations attached to me. The determination to carve out my individual belief structure began to ignite like a spark in the messy yet beautiful chaos of my thoughts. Yet, an impending conflict bloomed within me. As I wrestled with the seductive safety of conformity against the allure of autonomy, I could feel the tension building, signaling a storm of realization was about to break. The very foundation of who I thought I was at stake. Did I dare to challenge this pervasive influence, to strip away the layers of others' voices that cloaked my own? Or would I remain hidden beneath the comfort of collective acceptance, even if it meant living a life defined by shadows? The answer loomed like an oncoming thunderclap, a revelation that promised transformation, or perhaps destruction. Could I embrace the collective consciousness while still preserving the essence of my individuality? As these questions swirled increasingly fervently, a palpable tension filled the air, crackling with the urgency of a choice yet to be made. The role of individuality, amidst the vast ocean of collective consciousness, I often found myself adrift, grappling with the paradox of my individuality. Here I was, a singular entity with my own quirks and aspirations, yet surrounded by an intricate web of shared thoughts and societal expectations. It felt like standing at the edge of a precipice, peering into the depths of the unknown. I realized that to truly understand my place within this grand tapestry, I had to dive deep into the essence of who I am. With each encounter that brought me closer to the collective, I felt the whispers of conformity brush against my skin, like an insistent breeze beckoning me to surrender. But what did it mean to belong? Did it require me to shrink myself down to fit neatly into a mold crafted by others? Or could I stand tall, vibrant in my uniqueness, while still weaving my thread into the broader fabric? The struggle between fitting in and standing out was both exhilarating and terrifying, a constant dance that left me breathless. As I navigated this journey, I began to understand that individuality is not merely a stubborn refusal to blend in. It is the passionate assertion of one's own narrative amidst a sea of stories. Each unique voice contributes a note to the universal symphony, and it was in this realization that I began to find strength. I envisioned my own song, distinct yet resonant with the collective chorus surrounding me, My individuality became a beacon, lighting up the intricacies of shared experience. Still, as I stood at this crossroads, uncertainty gnawed at my core. What price would I pay for this authenticity? Would my individuality lose its vibrancy in a world so eager to homogenize? I felt the pressure mounting, challenging me to choose between the comfort of conformity and the raw beauty of my true self. In those moments of ambivalence, I grasped the significance of choice. The world outside could exert its influences, but ultimately, the power to define myself lay within my own hands. Each decision I made was a brushstroke on the canvas of my life, and I had to be bold enough to paint with bright colors that reflected my essence. As I confronted the whispers of doubt, I vowed to embrace my individuality fiercely, weaving it into my existence like a mesmerizing thread, vibrant against the monotony that often sought to dull it. Yet, the sense of impending tension lingered. Would this journey of self-discovery lead me to liberation or isolation? Chapter 10. The Impact of Technology. The Digital Dilemma. Technology has woven itself into the very fabric of existence, each thread a possibility, each possibility a paradox that I can't seem to escape. It's a relentless tide, pushing and pulling at my consciousness, leaving me disoriented and breathless. As I scroll through the endless streams of information, I find myself caught in a paradox that is not just external, but deeply internal as well. Is this a world of connection or isolation? I ponder as I watch friends share moments that feel more like performances than genuine interactions. With every ping of notifications, I'm reminded of the mixed blessings technology brings. There are moments when I revel in the ability to connect with others instantly, voices, laughter, even tears captured and transmitted through a mere tap on a glass screen. Yet, beneath that surface, I often feel the relentless itch of disconnection rippling through my thoughts. Am I merely an observer, or can I truly engage? When was the last time I gazed into the eyes of a friend rather than the glow of a screen? It weighs heavily on me, this tension between the two worlds, one vibrant and alive, the other a sterile expanse of pixels. I grapple with what it means to be present in a world that is continuously racing ahead, each moment archived and easily forgotten. Social media promises intimacy, yet here I find myself alone, scrolling and tapping, mingling with ghostly echoes of once close relationships. When I share a part of my life online, has it truly been shared, or is it just littering the digital landscape? I question my motivations, an incessant hum of doubt and contemplation creeping into my psyche. In a paradoxical twist, I feel more disconnected from myself as I lay my life bare for all to see, yet remain invisible, cloaked in anonymity. As night falls and the world quiets, I am left with the stark realization that this tech-driven existence is a mirror reflecting my deepest fears and desires. I stare at the reflection, and it stares back, a haunting spectre, yearning for the warmth of unmediated human connection. And just as I think I've reached some semblance of clarity, a notification buzzes, a flicker of distraction that reignites the internal conflict. I find myself in a vortex of wanting to be seen, yet terrified of what that exposure might unveil. What am I trading for this fleeting digital connection? It gnaws at me, the seduction of technology entwined with its capacity to isolate. Finally, I close my eyes and take a deep breath, letting the chaos swirl around me, embracing the discomfort as I question whether technology is liberating me or suffocating my very essence. In this internal battle, I grasp the truth of my existence more keenly than ever. My mind races ahead, imagining how I can harness this tool, this digital double-edged sword, for deeper, more authentic connections. Yet the question swells within me, will I always be caught in this digital dilemma, forever yearning for a bridge between the virtual and the real? As I ponder this, the weight of the uncertainty settles in, dark and profound, pushing me toward a revelation that could shatter or reshape my path. Connections or disconnections. I often find myself wondering whether technology has brought us closer together or pulled us apart. In moments of solitude, I sit with my phone in hand, scrolling through a deluge of photos and updates that feel so immediate, yet simultaneously distant. I'm connected to humanity, yet I can't shake the feeling of loneliness that echoes through my digital interactions. Are we merely pixels and hashtags? Or is there still a thread of authenticity binding us together? The irony isn't lost on me. I can share my thoughts in the blink of an eye and receive instant feedback from someone halfway across the globe. I've had heart-to-heart discussions over text, volatile debates in comment sections, and shared laughter via memes, small bits of humor that ripple through the online community. But as I reflect on these interactions, I can't help but feel a profound disconnection lurking in the shadows. When was the last time I lost myself in a genuine face-to-face conversation, the kind where laughter rings freely and silences are comfortable? And so I press on, questioning where these connections truly lie. Are we building bridges between our hearts, or are we drawing lines in the sand, trapping ourselves within our digital bubbles? I need answers. I yearn for clarity in a world that becomes increasingly murky with each ping and notification. The stakes feel higher now. The sense of urgency swells within me. As I delve deeper into this exploration, I can't shake the weight of an impending realization. The world is at a tipping point, and my perspective might very well determine my fate in this web of connections or disconnections. The future of interaction. As I sit back, reflecting on the dizzying evolution of technology, I can't help but wonder what lies ahead for our connections, those fleeting, intricate webs we call relationships. The social networks that once bloomed into communities have been reduced to mere squares on a screen, each pixel screaming for attention in a cacophony of notifications. This surge of interconnectedness is both intoxicating and overwhelming, and I find myself at a crossroads, pondering whether we are truly more connected now, or if we've unwittingly spiraled into deeper isolation. What if the future of interaction is a paradox, a dance between artificial ease and genuine disconnection? I imagine a world where AI mediates our greetings, where algorithms curate our conversations, tailoring them to what they predict will engage our curiosity. In this potential future, would the warmth of a shared laugh or the rawness of real emotion be replaced by a far exchange of emojis and likes? I chase these thoughts through the corridors of my mind, desperately seeking the answer to one pressing question: will we become mere spectators in our own lives? Every technological leap leaves footprints behind, paths we've walked down, choices we've made. But as I project myself into this imagined future, I grapple with the looming spectre of loneliness that could loom larger than the virtual connections we form. The irony strikes me. We've built bridges to span the distance between us, yet in our daily interactions, we find ourselves drifting apart. I clutch the remnants of hope within me, yearning for a revitalized human connection that transcends the screen, one that can weave the threads of our existence with authenticity and depth. But amidst my haunting musings, an unsettling thought surfaces. What of the generations to come? Will children born into this digital cradle ever know the thrill of a spontaneous gathering, the tender helplessness of face-to-face vulnerability? Or will they forge their identities through avatars and digital personas, trading soul-deep conversations for clicks and taps? I shudder at the prospect, carried away by a wave of uncertainty and concern. As these thoughts swirl, an electric urgency fills my heart. The future is not just an abstract realm, it is a canvas yet to be painted, a tomorrow molded by the choices we make today. Striking the right balance between technology and intimacy becomes paramount, an intricate tango between connection and disconnection. The time to act is now, to reclaim the resilience of our humanity in a tech-driven world, to ensure that in the midst of our digital dialogues, we don't lose the essence of what it means to truly be present. I close my eyes, ready to dive deeper, to uncover how we might not only preserve our connections, but enhance them as we step toward the unknown. Chapter 11. The Art of Storytelling Narratives That Shape Reality. As I sat on the worn wooden bench in the park, the shadows of the trees danced gently in the afternoon light. I couldn't help but ponder how the stories we carry shape our understanding of the world. Each tale, like a thread in a tapestry, wove together a richer picture of reality. It was a realization that struck me deeply. I was not just a passive listener. I was an active participant in the narratives that defined my existence. The world around me brims with countless stories, looming large like colossi waiting to be told. As I observed a mother guiding her child through the art of riding a bicycle, I saw the narrative of patience and learning unfold before my eyes. Each wobbly attempt became not a failure, but a cornerstone of resilience, proof that we are sculpted by our experiences, our victories, and our missteps. The stories we hear and tell ourselves forge the essence of who we are, underpinning our beliefs and choices. And yet, what happens when those narratives slip through our fingers? The thought expanded in my mind like ripples across a still pond. Too often, we accept the surface tale, the expected storyline handed down through generations. The more I thought about it, the more I became aware of my own narratives, those comforting yet restricting stories I'd latched onto. Perhaps it was time to unravel them, to confront the weight of the unwritten chapters pressing against my heart. As I noticed the evening sun dipping below the horizon, casting the park in an amber glow, a singular question echoed in my mind. What realities have I unwittingly constructed based on others' tales? Suddenly, the air felt thick with possibility. I yearned to question everything. The exhilaration of potential flooded through me. I wasn't merely a player in someone else's script. I held a pen, the power to rewrite. My pulse quickened as I envisioned all the narratives I could create, stories that embraced truth over obligation, vulnerability over pretense. What would they look like? Would I grant myself the permission to dream expansively? My heart raced at the thought of unearthing those hidden layers and of giving voice to the unspoken. In that moment of introspection, uncertainty stirred, fraying the edges of my contentment. And with the sun committing itself to its nightly descent, I felt a sense of urgency. The weight of realization bore heavily down on me. If I didn't begin to explore these narratives, I risked living a life curated by others. The stories we cling to provide comfort, but they can cast shadows, confining our true selves in darkness. I wanted to break free. I needed to. As dusk fell, enveloping me in a shroud of twilight, I resolved to step into the world anew. I would challenge the constraints of my narratives, peeling back the layers that guided my choices. The heart of storytelling was steeped not only in creation, but also in courage. Courage to embrace my own tales, to tell them with reckless abandon regardless of judgment. The world was waiting for a new chapter, the storyteller's craft. As I sat on the edge of the worn bench in the park, I could feel the pulse of stories swirling around me. Every face that passed by, every hushed conversation, was a thread in a tapestry too vast to comprehend, yet too compelling to ignore. I had always been drawn to storytelling, not just as a means of expression, but as a vessel for understanding life itself. It seemed to me that the act of weaving words into narratives was not merely an art form, it was a craft, a delicate interplay between truth and imagination. My mind flickered to the stories that had shaped my own journey. The gentle whisper of my grandmother's tales under the starlit sky taught me the power of metaphor. Each story held a mirror to my reality, revealing truths I had yet to accept. As a child, I would lay awake, grappling with anxiety and wonder alike, my heart dancing between fear and fascination as I drifted into the worlds they painted for me. It was in those moments that I discovered my identity as a storyteller, feeling an innate calling to share my own story in hopes of illuminating another's path. But the craft of storytelling also bore an immense weight. I began to ponder, what responsibility did I carry when I chose to share a narrative? Every plot twist I crafted, every character I brought to life, echoed back to my own experiences and values. I was acutely aware that the tales I wove could influence perceptions, engender empathy, and even incite change. Yet, with that power came the risk of distortion. What if my interpretation of truth diverged from the realities of others? It was a tension that gnawed at my consciousness. In that moment, a sense of urgency surged within me. I wanted to embrace the complexity of existence, the messy, beautiful, sometimes tragic threads that compose our lives. Each story I borrowed and every one I shared was an attempt to stitch together the scattered fragments of human experience. I could already see the flicker of potential in my mind's eye, the beginnings of something extraordinary just waiting to be unleashed. Could I call upon all the narratives I had gathered, shaping them to carve a space where hearts could connect? That question lingered, heavy with possibility. I realized that in my quest to be a storyteller, I too was a character in an ongoing saga, one filled with choices that could ripple through time and place. The weight of my pen felt both exhilarating and daunting as I prepared to etch my truths upon the blank canvas before me. With each stroke, I sought to honor those stories that had paved my way while daring to venture beyond. What awaited in these unwritten chapters of my life? It was time to find out, and in doing so, share a piece of that journey with the world. Lessons from our myths. As I delved into the ancient tales that have shaped our collective psyche, I realized how much they reflected our deepest truths and fears. Each myth, a thread that binds us to our ancestors, speaks of courage, sacrifice, love, and the eternal struggle between light and darkness. They aren't just stories told around a flickering fire, but rather timeless lessons, whispering wisdom into the ears of anyone willing to listen. They provide context to my own journey, each tale a mirror reflecting aspects of my own existence. What struck me was the universality of these narratives. From the heroic battles of Hercules to the cunning strategies of Odysseus, I recognized the very essence of humanity laid bare, both our grandeur and our folly. As I pondered over these age-old tales, it became clear that I, too, was spinning my own narrative, not unlike those heroes and heroines who trod the path before me. I began to see my trials and tribulations not simply as obstacles, but as vital chapters in a grand story that sought to teach me, to mold me into someone greater than I had ever imagined. Myths teach us the importance of resilience. The stories showcase not only triumphs, but also failures, the moments of despair that precede great victories. I found solace in the idea that every setback is a setup for a comeback, mirroring the journeys of ancient heroes who faced insurmountable odds. As I embraced my own challenges, I came to understand that I was not alone. Generations before me had faced their own demons, weaving resilience into the fabric of their stories. If they could rise from ashes, so could I. Then there's the theme of transformation, a recurring motif that I couldn't ignore. Many tales depict characters who undergo profound changes after confronting insurmountable challenges. This fluctuation mirrored my desire of transformation throughout my journey. Could I evolve from the person I once was? Would I cling to old habits, or embrace the metamorphosis that lay ahead? As I questioned these elements within myself, I was reminded that every great story hinges on transformation, providing fuel for growth and the inevitable clash between the known and the unknown. And then there's the resolution, the poignant moments where lessons are distilled into wisdom. Myths often conclude with the hero's return home, transformed and enlightened, ready to impart their newfound knowledge. I craved that moment of catharsis in my own life, an endpoint where the struggles would yield insight, clarity illuminated by all the darkness I had traversed. Yet was I ready to accept the lessons these myths presented, even the uncomfortable ones? These stories, like life itself, offered truths that demanded reflection, and sometimes that reflection would shatter the illusions I'd clung to. As I teetered on the edge of these revelations, a question lingered in my mind. What myth would I write for myself? Would my narrative reflect bravery or stagnation? It became a matter of choice, a delicate dance of agency and fate. With the echoes of those ancient stories resonating within me, I felt an overwhelming urge to embrace the role of the storyteller in my life. The realization washed over me like the tides, and in that moment, the weight of that responsibility felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Holding the pen seemed like wielding a sword, ready to carve out the saga I would share with the world. However, as all good myths reveal, the greatest lessons often come cloaked in struggle. The tension rose within me, the anticipation of the trials that lay ahead. Would I have the courage to confront my own challenges, to face the shadows lurking behind my choices? The myth I was weaving resisted the notion of a straight path. It promised turmoil, challenges, and uncertainty. Yet, wasn't that what made a story truly worth telling? As I embraced the intricacies of this narrative, I sensed the impending clash that awaited, the battle between my fears and aspirations, setting the stage for an epic confrontation. Chapter 12. The Role of Choice. The Illusion of Free Will. The moment I began to question the very foundation of my choices, the world around me transformed. It felt as if my life had been scripted, with each decision slipping through my fingers like sand. I pondered whether my so-called free will was merely a mirage, a convenient illusion crafted by my mind to justify my existence. Were my desires truly mine, or were they echoes of desires imposed upon me by family, friends, and society? Each choice I made seemed to pull me further into a labyrinth of uncertainty. During quiet moments, I caught myself reflecting on pivotal points in my life, the crossroads where I believed I had exercised my free will. But what if those moments were nudged by unseen forces? The expectations from my parents, the peer pressure from my friends, and even the trends dictated by the media. Every decision was ensconced in layers of influence that clouded my judgment. As I contemplated the concept of free will, the lines blurring between desire and influence sent shivers down my spine. Could it be that the notion of choice was simply a comforting lie we told ourselves to cope with the chaotic orchestra of life around us? What if I had never truly chosen anything at all? With each decision, I felt trapped in an intricate web of predetermined paths, and suddenly the weight of agency felt unbearable. If I surrendered to the idea that free will was an illusion, what did that mean for my identity? The existential dread gripped me as I considered the possibility that my life was not my own, but a series of arbitrary events dictated by fate. I found myself at a precipice, teetering on the edge of understanding, and the tension was palpable, as I was faced with the daunting realization that the answers I sought might unravel the very fabric of my being. Decision-making dynamics. The moment I became aware of the complex mechanics behind my choices felt like an awakening. Each decision stood before me, not just as a fork in the road, but as a tapestry woven from intricate threads of emotions, experiences, and expectations. It wasn't merely about choosing one path over another. It was about unraveling the layers of influence that led me to the precipice of each choice. As I sat in my quiet room, the dim light filtering through the curtains, I found myself contemplating the unspoken dialogues in my mind, grappling with the conflicting desires of my heart and the rationality of my mind. I recalled a day not too long ago when I stood in front of that coffee shop, mulling over the two options before me: the rich, familiar flavor of my go-to latte, or the bold, daring choice of a matcha cappuccino. The decision, trivial as it seemed, echoed deeper truths about who I was becoming. Should I cling to comfort, or should I embrace the unfamiliar? My choices began to feel like echoes of my identity, each ripple resonating with the choices of those around me. I could see the ghostly silhouette of my sister's influence, the gentle nudge of my friends' opinions, and the quiet expectations of my parents lingering in the back of my mind, all propelling me towards one option or another. As I stood at the threshold of decision, the clock ticking mercilessly on the wall, it dawned on me how each choice created its own ripple effects, beyond me and into the lives of others. Each wave of decision-making intertwined with the lives of those I cherished and even those I had never met. I felt a sudden rush of responsibility fall upon my shoulders. Far-away echoes of friendships fostering or faltering, relationships blossoming or breaking, danced in my thoughts, tipping the scales of my contemplation. Could I really claim ownership of my choices when the very landscape of my life was shaped by countless unseen hands? With a deep breath, I understood that the essence of decision-making lay not in achieving perfection, but in embracing the messiness of existence. Standing there, amidst the whirlpool of choices, I realized that every choice, each turn I took, would only add layers to the rich canvas of my life. In that moment of intense self-reflection, I sensed the weight of my next decision, not only as a reflective choice of preference, but as a defining act of agency. Would I lean into fear or embrace the unknown? The brewing tension inside me felt like a storm, teetering on the cusp of release, waiting for the moment when I would lean into my own truth. What would I choose? The answer felt just out of reach, a shimmering thread in the fabric of my hesitations. But one certainty struck me. The moment I claimed the power of my choices, I would be ready to face the ensuing storm. Then, little did I know, my decision in that unassuming coffee shop would emerge as a catalyst, stirring up a tumultuous wave that would crash into the shores of my life in ways I had yet to imagine. The ripple effects of choices. Reflecting on the choices I've made, I can't help but wonder about the unseen threads connecting each decision. Some days, it feels like a gentle breeze nudging me in a certain direction, while others, it's a tempest that shakes the very foundation of my being. I think back to a seemingly simple choice, to attend a poetry reading one rainy evening. Little did I know, that single decision would cascade into a series of events that rippled through my life and the lives of others like a stone tossed into a still pond. At that reading, I met Sarah, a quiet artist with paint-streaked hands and eyes that sparkled with unshared stories. We spoke for hours, our words weaving a bond I couldn't have predicted. I chose to share a stranger's life experiences while neglecting my own. In that moment, it didn't just change my trajectory. It opened a door to her world, and through her eyes, I saw beauty in vulnerability. However, I had no idea how much our connection would impact her life, sparking the courage she had long buried. But choices are rarely confined to the moments they are made. They seep into the surrounding fabric of existence. Months later, Sarah left her job to pursue art full-time, a decision sparked by my encouragement during one of our conversations. I was proud, yet terrified. What if I had nudged her into uncertainty rather than freedom? The quest for assurance in our choices often overshadows the reality that we are not just shaping our lives, but also influencing those woven into our narrative. As I ponder these interconnected choices that resemble an intricate tapestry, I can't help but feel the weight of responsibility pressing down like a heavy fog. The absence of a choice can linger just as heavily. When I hesitated to speak up about my dreams, I missed a chance to inspire someone else to follow theirs. What if my silence condemned another soul to feel lost? The thought haunted me, wrapping around my consciousness like tendrils of ivy. Now, sitting on my favorite bench overlooking the park where everything unfolded, I can almost hear the whispers of the past. Choices echo in the air, mingling with laughter and the rustle of leaves. It's a symphony of alternatives, each choice an instrument, playing its own note in the grand orchestra of existence. I know that each decision, small or monumental, has consequences far beyond my understanding, weaving in and out of the lives entwined with mine. As I approach the end of this contemplative journey, an unsettling realization strikes me. The most profound ripple effects come from choices made in moments of uncertainty. Those moments carry a weight that often feels insurmountable. The memories of what could be haunt me, leaving me suspended between what if and what is. The bated breath of all the unanswered questions lingers like a heavy cloud, leaving me to ponder how much has been lost to fear, or perhaps fear itself was the catalyst for courage in another. With the sun beginning to set, I realize that the true essence of choice lies not only in the decision itself, but also in the courage it takes to hold space for its consequences. Each ripple has the potential to create waves, pushing my life and the lives of those around me into new, unexplored territories. And as I stand to leave the park, I can almost feel the stirrings of change, a gentle reminder that every choice matters, echoing through the lives I have yet to touch. Chapter 13. The Depths of Introspection. Diving into darkness. There are shadows that lurk within, a darkness we often avoid confronting. In a world filled with distractions and superficial connections, I found myself staring down the abyss of my emotions. Each time I tried to ignore the heavy weight pressing on my chest, it only grew heavier, whispering reminders of what I wished to forget. I had to plunge into this darkness, to understand what it truly meant to be me. As I descended deeper into my thoughts, the echoes of my innermost fears began to resurface. They took shape and form, enveloping me in a suffocating blanket of self-doubt and regret. Why did I let these thoughts consume me? My heart raced at the realization that I was fully responsible for this emotional labyrinth, a maze constructed from my anxieties, insecurities, and unprocessed grief. It was easy to blame external factors for my discontent, but this journey demanded that I face myself with brutal honesty. In that moment, I understood that darkness isn't a void. It's a canvas painted with the emotions we fear to acknowledge. I had spent so long avoiding this reckoning, thinking I could thrive in the light without addressing the shadows. I was finally ready to face the mirror and confront what lurked beneath. The grip of fear tightened as I recognized what lay ahead. Would I emerge from this darkness unscathed, or would it consume me? I took a deep breath, feeling the air thicken around me, and prepared to dive deeper into my psyche. unearthing the buried parts of myself that I had neglected for too long. The tension mounted within me, urging me to question everything I thought I knew about who I was. The light of understanding. The darkness within me had become a familiar companion, lurking behind the shadows of my thoughts, weighing heavily on my soul. As I dove into my introspection, I found myself grappling with the haunting echoes of my insecurities and failures. They twisted in my heart like thorns, reminding me of paths not taken and dreams deferred. Yet, within that darkness lay a flicker of potential, a light waiting to be ignited by my willingness to understand. I recalled moments etched in my memory, the painful recollections that seemed to serve no purpose other than to torment me. But what if, instead of viewing them as burdens, I began to perceive them as stepping stones leading to growth? Each experience, no matter how painful, whispered lessons waiting to be learned. Quietly, I began to sift through the rubble of my past. Perhaps clarity resided not in the suppression of my memories, but in the embrace of their truths. But the light of understanding is not merely a soothing glow, it can be blinding. It demanded that I face the discomfort head-on, to confront the fragmented pieces of myself I had long avoided. Each revelation chipped away at my previous notions, and with each realization came an unsettling clarity. I felt like a sculptor being chiseled down into my true form, revealing the beauty hidden beneath the flaws. It was exhilarating, yet terrifying, knowing that embracing this new light would illuminate paths I had never before dared to tread. I found myself standing on the precipice of change, balancing between the safety of the familiar darkness and the vibrant yet daunting light ahead. What lay beyond would require courage, an open heart, and a willingness to embrace vulnerability. A part of me yearned for the warmth of acceptance, while another trembled at the thought of exposure. In these moments of conflict, understanding flickered dimly, yet it was enough to guide me towards the deeper truths I sought. With the dawning awareness unfolding before me, I prepared to step forward, knowing that enlightenment often comes at a cost. There was no swift passage nor painless journey awaiting me. Instead, it was an intricate dance of acceptance and rejection, a weaving together of my fears into a newfound armor of resilience. The light of understanding glimmered, beckoning me forth as I plunged deeper into my own depths, ready to embrace the growing knowledge that awaited in the spaces where light meets shadow. Growth through introspection. As I sat alone in my dimly lit room, the air thick with unspoken thoughts, I felt the weight of introspection settle around me like a heavy blanket. It was a familiar sentiment, this urge to dive deeper into my mind, to unravel the tangled threads of emotion and memory. I closed my eyes, seeking the space within where understanding lurked, hidden beneath layers of fear and uncertainty. What was I truly afraid of? Failure, rejection, or perhaps the truth that I wasn't as strong as I portrayed to the outside world? With each breath, I felt myself drift further from the confines of my surroundings, transported to moments of my past. Memories flooded my mind like a rushing river, at times tumultuous, and at others, a gentle stream. I recalled the hurtful words that had etched themselves into my soul, words that echoed in my head. How many times had I replayed those echoes, allowing them to shape my identity, perhaps more than they should have? The introspective journey was not merely a silent meandering, but an intense review of the narrative I had unwittingly crafted for myself. Suddenly, the stillness was shattered. A realization struck with such force that I opened my eyes, the room now feeling more suffocating than before. I had been forging my identity in the fires of my hardships, yet here I was, stubbornly clinging to the ashes. Recognizing this was like flipping a switch. Light flickered in places darkened by grief and regret. I understood that growth requires more than just examination. It demands action. How many growth opportunities had I neglected out of fear or ignorance? The sting of that truth was palpable, igniting a spark of determination in my heart. I took a deep breath, inhaling the courage to face not only the specters of my past, but also the future that loomed before me like an unfinished book. What could I accomplish if I embraced growth rather than recoiling from it? Questions spun through my mind like a whirlwind. With each pulse of energy coursing through me, I felt an exhilarating combination of fear and excitement. Transformation was staring me in the face, It was as if I stood at the edge of a vast chasm, my heart racing, urging me to leap and trust that my wings would carry me. This pivotal moment ignited within me a fierce resolve. I reflected. Introspection is, at its core, not merely an exercise in self-pity, but a powerful catalyst for meaningful change. In confronting my truths, I discovered the potential for growth, a rebirth, and armed with this newfound clarity, I was ready to let go of the weight of my past. The shimmering horizon ahead beckoned me forward, a reminder that to grow, I must dare to embrace vulnerability, illuminating each shadow with the light of understanding. Chapter 14. The Connection with Nature. Nature's Silent Language. As I stepped into the lush embrace of the forest, I felt an inexplicable pull, a silent yearning to decode the whispers of nature surrounding me. It was as if the trees were guardians of ancient secrets, their leaves flickering like pages turning in a book I had yet to read. Every rustle, every distant bird call felt like a beckoning, inviting me deeper into the labyrinth of green. I stood still, closing my eyes to absorb the symphony nature orchestrated, a melody composed of buzzing insects, the faint trickle of a nearby stream, and the wind's gentle caress against the foliage. The absence of cacophony was blissful, softly reminding me that sometimes communication lies not in words, but in the sensations evoked by the very presence of life around me. Suddenly, the tranquility around me shifted. A rustle in the bushes startled me, striking a chord of tension in my heart. Each quickened heartbeat mirrored the sudden wild energy that danced through the air. I glanced around, my senses heightened. What had been a serene exploration transformed into an anticipatory moment, a reminder that nature held both beauty and unpredictability in its embrace. That very thought sent a shiver down my spine. Nature, a silent yet eloquent storyteller, could unfold its narrative with both grace and ferocity. What was hidden behind the foliage? Was there a lesson lurking in the underbrush, a truth that I was dangerously close to unearthing? The tension thickened as I began to feel not just the whispers of the woods, but an awareness of the delicate balance within. I recalled the stories of those who had ventured too far, who had listened to the forest's pulse only to awaken its raw and untamed spirit. I felt alive, teetering on the edge of discovery, aware that, amidst the beauty of silence, a storm could always be brewing beneath the surface. With each hesitant step, I could almost hear nature's voice, the echo of lessons waiting to be learned, and perhaps a storm looming in the distance. Would I be brave enough to embrace the wild unknown and decipher the true essence of what I had felt? I took a deep breath, knowing that this journey was just beginning, and the path ahead was filled with both wonder and trepidation. Lessons from the wild. As I trekked deeper into the forest, the trees whispered secrets only the heart could understand. Their branches danced above me, intertwining in a living tapestry. I felt alive, more connected to each breath of fresh air than ever before. Nature had its own way of communicating, speaking in a language of rustling leaves and chirping birds that seemed to sing just for me. It was in this sacred silence that I began to grasp the lessons the wild had to offer, wisdom woven into the very fabric of existence. Each step on the damp earth felt like a heartbeat, a rhythm with the pulse of the wilderness surrounding me. I noticed how resilient the ferns were, pushing through the underbrush despite their fragile appearances, reminding me of my own struggles. How often had I feared breaking, when in fact, like these delicate yet robust plants, I could bend without breaking? Each footfall echoed not just in my ears, but in the very core of my being. I curled my fingers around the rough bark of an ancient oak. Its gnarled roots stretched deep, anchoring it to the earth, unyielding against storms it had faced for centuries. I marveled at the strength hidden within it. The lessons began to unfold, the beauty of endurance, the quiet power of being grounded even when the winds of life howl around us. The wild was not just a backdrop to my journey. It was an integral part of me, teaching me to embrace my own complexities, to find strength in vulnerability. The closer I got to the river that carved its way through the forest, the more I felt an electric thrill run down my spine. Water is life, but it is also relentless. It smooths stones over time, carving out valleys and reshaping landscapes. I couldn't help but draw parallels between this natural process and my own experiences. Change was inevitable. I had learned that in my own life, tied down by fears and past scars. If only I could allow myself to flow like the river, to navigate the rocks without clinging to what once was, to let go and trust in the course of my life. But then, as I reached the water's edge, darkness loomed in the distance, a storm brewing just beyond the treetops. A prickling sensation crawled along my skin, a reminder of fragility even in the wild's most majestic moments. The winds began to whip, leaves swirling in a chaotic dance. I felt the tension building, not just in the atmosphere, but within myself. Would I falter under pressure, or rise momentarily unclothed, stripped of all comforts? I realized I had a choice to make, just like nature does when faced with the tumult, to stand firm or to flow gracefully, adapting to whatever forces came my way. The circle of life. As I stood at the edge of the forest, the whispers of life flooded my senses. Every rustle of leaves, every dash of color in the underbrush seemed to weave a tale, reminding me that I was part of something far greater. The trees, with their strong, gnarled branches, were silent witnesses to generations of stories, each one a testament to resilience and interconnection. I marveled at the intricate web of life surrounding me, realizing that in this vast ecosystem, every creature, every plant, and even the very soil had its role to play in the circle of life. What struck me most was the cyclical nature of existence. My thoughts drifted to the seasons, how they embody the essence of beginning and ending, growth and decay. Each spring, the earth awakens, bursting forth with vibrant blooms and fresh energy, only to relent to the slowing pace of autumn. It felt like a reflection of my own journey, the ebbs and flows of my experiences mirroring the natural world around me. Did I truly understand my place within this cycle? Each moment, each decision led me deeper into this fabric of existence. As I contemplated the interdependence of life, I felt a stirring in my soul, a calling not just to observe but to participate. I remembered the lessons from the wild. They echoed in my mind like a well-worn book. Every struggle, every triumph of nature bore significance. The eagle's hunt was not merely to survive, it was part of a delicate balance. These lessons were far more than mere survival. They were about understanding and embracing the transformation inherent in life. If I wished to truly connect with nature, I needed to approach it with reverence, honoring the cycle of life that nourished me. But would I have the courage to confront my own struggles, to become part of this cycle, even when it demanded sacrifice? As dusk settled in, casting long shadows amongst the trees, I felt a rush of urgency. The truth of the circle of life bore down on me, heavy yet liberating. Would I break free from the confines of my own fears? Could I recognize the potential in every ending, knowing that it was merely a prelude to a new beginning? There was an uncomfortable tension in that realization, a sense that I stood at a precipice, teetering on the edge of something extraordinary, yet frighteningly unknown. I took a deep breath, the earthy scent of the forest filling my lungs, promising that life continued to pulse around me and within me. It was time to step forward, to embrace both the beauty and chaos of my connection to this exquisite circle. Chapter 15. The Future Unknown, Imagining Tomorrow. As I sit here, daydreaming about the morrow, my mind swirls with an intoxicating mix of hope and anxiety. What does the future hold for me? 1,000 possibilities ripple out like waves in a pond, each one tugging at my imagination. I envision a world painted in vivid colors, where dreams are no longer confined to the fringes of thought, but dance wildly in the light of reality. Will I harness the courage to seize those dreams, bold enough to pursue the unknown? Yet, beneath the excitement lies an undercurrent of unease. The uncertainty feels like a weight pressing against my chest, urging me to dwell on what could go wrong. I contemplate my aspirations, my relationships, the very essence of who I am and who I yearn to become. Will I remain trapped in the familiar shadows of doubt, or will I step into the radiant horizon? In this precarious balance of optimism and fear, I realize that the darkest corners of possibility often hold the most astonishing potentials. Even as I imagine my path, I know that nothing is ever guaranteed. Every choice, like a breath, carves out a destiny. The unwritten stories of tomorrow beckon me, tantalizing and terrifying in their allure. I can see myself soaring toward those dreams. But what if I falter? What if the weight of expectation drags me down? They say the future is a canvas, but the brush is in my hand, trembling with both the ache of responsibility and the thrill of creation. Can I muster the strength to paint it boldly, to let my heart guide the strokes without fear of imperfection? Then, a pulse of clarity hits me. The unknown may be daunting, but it is also a playground of endless possibilities. I can choose to embrace the uncertainty, to revel in the chaos of making a life that feels truly mine. After all, isn't it the leap into the unknown that often leads to our most profound transformations? My heart races at the thought, igniting a spark that stirs within me. Suddenly, I find courage rising from the depths of my doubts, urging me to leap, to dream, and to imagine a tomorrow that echoes with the symphony of my own creation. But even as I stand on the precipice of my aspirations, I can't help but feel the tendrils of fear wrapping around me, whispering caution in my ears. I struggle against the tide of self-doubt, grappling with the shadows that linger behind my excitement. Am I truly ready to face the unwritten chapters of my life? Can I trust myself to write a story that is not only brave but meaningful? As the dusk deepens around me, filling the air with an electrifying tension, I realize one undeniable truth. The future may be unknown, but the real adventure lies in the journey to discover it. The unwritten chapters, I often find myself lost in the reveries of possibility, pondering the paths not yet taken. The unwritten chapters of my life loom ahead like fog-covered hills, tantalizingly out of reach, whispering secrets of adventure, heartache, and unexpected joy. Each moment teeming with potential, every tick of the clock feels laden with the weight of choice, and I stand at the precipice, peering into the vast unknown. As I navigate my everyday existence, the allure of what lies beyond the horizon is both exhilarating and terrifying. With each decision I make, I indelibly mark the pages of my story. But what of those decisions left unmade? What if I dared to indulge in the whimsy of spontaneity? What chapters would I write if I surrendered completely to the chaos of life, allowing the universe to steer my course? In the quiet moments, when I'm alone with my thoughts, the unanswered questions spiral like smoke, swirling away just out of reach. The possibilities are countless, a tapestry woven with threads of exploration and risk. Yet, in this tantalizing dance with the unknown, I feel a burgeoning excitement. There is an intoxicating freedom that comes from embracing uncertainty, from recognizing that I am not bound by the script I have diligently written to this point. Perhaps it is time to relinquish my grip on predictability, to dive into the currents of spontaneity that promise to reshape my narrative. What if I could leap into those unexplored chapters where serendipity reigns and the plot twists are uncharted? My heart races at the thought of unpredictable encounters and unbounded adventures, stirring a concoction of both fear and exhilaration. As I breathe in the ambiguity of existence, I realize that these unwritten chapters harbor not just the thrill of adventure, but also a certain weight, the burden of potential regret. What if I falter? What if the roads I choose lead me nowhere? Yet, as I stand on the threshold of this internal battle, I find a flicker of unwavering determination. Each unwritten chapter is not merely an empty space waiting to be filled. It is fertile ground, ripe with opportunities, lessons, and the raw material for growth. The thrill of yielding to the chaos is an invitation to write with reckless abandon, to live in vibrant color, and to trust that, above all, my story is mine alone to tell. With every beat of my heart, the unwritten chapters beckon, a siren call echoing in the distance. I can feel it in my bones, the urge to dive headfirst into the storm, to lean into the unknown with courage and curiosity. This moment, suspended in time, could very well be the beginning of a new adventure. A delicate fusion of excitement and trepidation dances within me as I take a deep breath. The future is unwritten, and I will no longer fear its blank pages. Instead, I will embrace the ink that awaits my touch, crafting a narrative that is not merely about where I am going, but about savoring the journey along the way. Embracing uncertainty. The air was thick with possibility, a tantalizing unknown that stretched ahead of me like an endless road shrouded in fog. Here I stood, on the precipice of my future, with a mix of exhilaration and trepidation coursing through my veins. The fear of the uncertain often paralyzed me, but in this moment I felt the faint stirrings of acceptance. I was learning to embrace this uncertainty, to celebrate it rather than shun it. I thought about the myriad choices I had made to get here, each one a small thread woven into the tapestry of my existence. Would I have the courage to step into the unknown, to let go of the need for certainty? In the past, I had clung to plans as one clings to a life raft in a storm. But now, I considered a new perspective. What if the unpredictability of life was not a chaotic whirlwind, but rather a dance? A dance where every misstep opened a new pathway, every stumble led to unanticipated joys. This journey was mine, and I was the author of my own narrative, crafting it with each step I took. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, allowing the air to fill my lungs. The quiet hum of the world around me, the rustle of leaves, the distant chatter of life, reminded me that the universe was alive and pulsating with energy. It thrived on change, uncertainty, and the chance of new horizons. I felt a thrilling kinship with the process of life itself, a sense of freedom washing over me. But then, a familiar voice inside me whispered doubts. What if I failed? What if the uncertainty led me to places I wasn't prepared for? My heart raced at the thought, but I quickly countered those fears with a new mantra: failure is a stepping stone. Each misstep, each awkwardly executed twirl in this grand dance could teach me something invaluable, revealing insights I could never foresee from the sidelines. This was not just about me, it was about every person who had ever walked a similar path, each one grappling with their own uncertainties, their stories intertwined with my own, a shared tapestry of experiences. I could feel the pulse of countless lives echoing around me, and I yearned to add my own vibrant thread to this magnificent creation. As I took my first step into the swirling fog of the future unknown, I realized that embracing uncertainty was the ultimate act of courage. I would seize the moment, dance to the rhythm of life's unpredictability, ready to embrace whatever came next. And in doing so, I hoped to inspire others, guiding them to understand that in the midst of uncertainty lies freedom and profound beauty. As we close the final chapter of the Complexity Code, I invite you to reflect on the journey we've taken together. We've delved deep into the fabric of thought, unraveling the threads that bind our perceptions, emotions, and beliefs. But this is just the beginning. The insights you've gained here are tools to help you continue your exploration, to question, to grow, and to navigate the complexities of life with a clearer, more conscious mind. Remember, the patterns you decode within yourself are the keys to unlocking a richer, more meaningful existence. Until our next exploration, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep embracing the complexity within.